The platform isn't on suicide. Suicide to me is an outcome, just like those other outcomes of homelessness, helplessness, poverty. All of them are born out of a feeling of hopelessness. And we see that manifested in the drug addict and the person living in their car, people that are committing suicide, people that are violent towards others. And so I want to use this as a platform to create some place, some center. I mean, I have this vision. It's a very grand vision of somewhat of a hope center, a hopeful center, some place where people can go no matter what level of kind of thinking problem they're at, whether it's I'm stuck in a job I can't stand, but I can't see a way out, and I'm just going to live this cruddy life because that's what I'm supposed to do, all the way up then to folks who have serious mental illness and require 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care for that.
Robin Williams was someone who made the world laugh, but then he shocked the world with suicide. Today's guest is going to share a personal story about him, his son, and his family. 80% of success is thinking, visualizing, visioning, believing. The other 20% is knowing what to do. And sometimes our thinking gets in the way. Even as business owners, as salespeople, as entrepreneurs, we sometimes have self-doubt. We think, am I good enough? Am I able to do this? And our own thoughts get in the way of what we're working to accomplish. Sometimes stinking thinking gets us into a place of hopelessness, and suicide becomes the outcome. Mental illness is a real disease. It's something that you can't be seen, something that often goes undiagnosed. And it shows up in many ways, like people living in their cars, people being homeless, people having to check themselves in. It comes out in violence. It just manifests its way in so many ways, but it's the thing we don't talk about. Today's guest, Jeff Connor, with the Performance Partners Coaching, shares his personal story about his son, Waylon, and a recent tragedy. And he wants to share the message that love is the answer, that hope is the answer.
My name's Travis Sims, and I am the founder and CEO of AGC Accelerated Global Connections. And this is the AGC Experience.
Businesses everywhere strive to be seen and heard in today's marketplace. Gone are the days when a simple "Open for Business" sign could be hung and a Yellow Pages ad created, resulting in customers pouring through the doors. Clarity Marketing specializes in social media strategy and execution. The Clarity Marketing team is more than just a faceless vendor. They become a seamless execution of the brands they serve, achieving a common goal of business success. If your company is looking for a premier social media marketing agency that is responsive and invested in your success, contact Clarity Marketing at 651-214-7290. Again, that's 651-214-7290.
Today I'm here with AGC Experience guest, AGC member, and new friend, Jeff Connor. He is with Performance Partners Coaching. And Jeff, we're just barely getting to know each other a little bit. You've been to some AGC events. You're a relatively new member. And I know you have a coaching business, which I'm a huge fan of. I think that every professional, every business person needs to be doing some type of business coaching. It's just what takes you to the next level. So please tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do in your business.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate you having me here today to talk a little bit about myself and my business and my background. I got into business coaching because I was once a client of a business coach. I had bought my dad's catering business and got into that. About a year into it, realized we needed something a little bit bigger. So I went and found a beautiful commercial kitchen attached to a 22,000 square foot event center. Got in way over my head real fast. And about 4 months into that endeavor, realized I started looking at the bank account, started looking at what we had booked on the calendar, money coming in, and I said, oh my God, I'm about to lose everything. And so I went in actually to my local chamber of commerce and told them I needed marketing help because the only thing I could see is I need to sell fast and get a little cash in the door. And he gave me 2 names, and both of those names happened to be business coaches. I met with both of them and I hired one. Barbara Zulager, who she's the founder of Performance Partners Coaching, but she came in and just introduced me to a whole new way of thinking and taught me specifically the law of the lid, that my business would never grow bigger than what I'm able to grow personally myself. So my professional development and personal growth took on a whole new meaning to me as I hired a business coach. And then I fell in love with coaching and I started coaching my team and did that for many years, and always had this desire to have this catering company run independent of me so that I could branch off and really go after this dream of business coaching. And so now that does happen. The catering company runs side by side. I'm still the owner, but I don't manage it day to day. I have a wonderful team there. And then I've gone out and found my own professional clients whom I can help build their business and kind of get out of their own way and work through their FUD, their fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we're hearing a lot about these days.
Oh, that's awesome. I can relate because a lot of business owners and salespeople, what they often create for themselves is a job. I mean, their intention is to create this business, but what they're really doing is creating a job. And they look up, especially when it's time to sell their business, especially when they're nearing that retirement age and they're going, okay, I need to be able to sell this, but they are the business.
Right.
And there's nothing there to sell because without them, it wouldn't be profitable. And I love that you took where you're at in your catering business to it can operate without me, so that there's a business that could later be sold or could be ran by another family member or a friend or whatever, or whatever you want to do with it. And it runs without you.
Right. And that was the goal. When Barbara and I first started meeting, she showed me this list of hierarchy of business ownership, and the bottom was employee, and then it went through solopreneur, independent contract solopreneur, all the way up to leveraged business owner / investor. And I said, I want to be at the top of that. Someday I want to be able to do what the guy who got me into the building that we're in, he helped me out a lot.
Good.
And I wanted to be able, pay that forward and be able to invest in other businesses, not just monetarily, be nice, but really with my expertise and my know-how, to be able to help them overcome some of their challenges and maybe not feel as bleak as I did in the early days.
Yeah. You did something a little bit smarter than I did, because back in 2007, 2008, I had a party retail store. 3,000-foot facility, and needed to do a certain volume to be able to keep the doors open. And just like a lot of businesses during that recession timeframe, that business didn't make it. We ended up bankrupting that business. And maybe if I had sought out a business coach at that time, I might have been able to survive that. So I think business coaching is something that you definitely should be seeking out in your business. I use a business coach personally, and I think it's just the way to get yourself to the next level. So,
yeah, I always think of people like Tiger Woods, the top of their game, and they're hiring business coaches. The best tennis players in the world hire not a business coach, but a coach, and to help them see what they don't see and to hold them a little bit accountable where nobody else really can. So that's, I think, the best thing that a business coach can give you is just seeing things you're not seeing and helping you stay on top of your game and holding you accountable to doing the things you're supposed to be doing anyway.
Yes. Now, Jeff, you're an AGC member. You're part of our AGC community. And I use the word community because I feel like when someone's going through something, whether it's business or it's personal or whatever it is, you need a community around you. And just recently, I saw a tragedy on social media that affected your family. And I reached out to you immediately and was like, how can I help? And I think a community looks for how we can help each other. And so typically when we're sharing the AGC experience, we're talking about a member's business. We're talking about what they do and how they impact the world. And I think what you're about to share with our audience at home, it ties right in directly to what you're doing with your business, because you want to help business owners and salespeople. But really what you want to do is impact the world in a bigger way. And I'd love if you could just share what happened recently and whatever it is, story you want to share along with that, and how we might be able to help others through this experience.
Yeah. So I know you told me we're limited to 30 minutes or so. This might push the boundaries of that, because I've got a lot to say about this. For years, through my personal growth and development, the one thing that I came to understand more than anything else was that my success was 80% based on what I was thinking. It's 80% what was going on inside of my head, and only 20% knowing how and what to do. And the best way that I can explain that concept is with weight loss. Barring some kind of a medical problem, people understand how and what to do to lose weight. We know that if we move more and we eat less, we should lose weight. But yet so many people struggle with doing how and what they know to do. And why is that? It's because of what they start thinking about the how and what they have to do. The self-control, the self-discipline are so very hard to come by. And it's replacing bad, disempowering habits with new and empowering habits. And that is tough and it's difficult. And I recently got involved with helping a homeless shelter here in Anoka and helping them in their jobs club. And as I sat through that jobs club, it really became apparent that, we can sit here and give them all the skills they need to do an interview, to fill out an application, to develop their resume, to wear the right clothes and things like that. But what we're not doing is giving them a new way to think. We're hoping that they'll solve the problems that they're in and that they've created with the same type of thinking that caused those problems. And it just doesn't work that way. And I became very interested in trying to find a way to show up and in a format to show up that could actually help folks that are struggling with stinking thinking. I think Zig Ziglar says that all the time. Stinking thinking, just having really poor thought patterns and, poor self-esteem and these feelings of hopelessness. I really feel like feelings of hopelessness are what are causing our homeless shelters to be full of people living in poverty, folks that are incarcerated, addiction. You mentioned the word community. We weren't meant to walk this walk alone. Yes, so many people are trying to do it, and they're living these lives of quiet desperation. And so that hopelessness shows up in that lonely walk. And then ultimately, and what Travis is most alluding to, is in suicide. November 12th, just 2 weeks ago tomorrow, actually, our youngest child, Waylon, found him dead by suicide in our basement. He had hung himself. And we had just come from a meeting in Forest Lake with we had a family counselor who was coming in trying to help my wife and I become better parents and be able to talk to Waylon in ways that would help him and develop strategies. But most importantly, when we sat down with him that night, when we got home, our intent was to be able to give him hope, because we felt like he was losing hope. And we drove home full of hope ourselves that this was going to make a difference, and walked in, started getting the garbage, doing all these things that you do when you get home in the evening, and walked inside. The music was just blaring. And I like that kid, can't even yell at him because the music's so loud. So had to go downstairs and his room light was off, and our utility room right across the hall was open. And I looked over and caught out of the corner of my eye Waylon standing there. My first impression was that he was standing, but he, as I approached, I could see the strap, and he had hung himself. We're not sure if he was, the way that he did it, he didn't step off of anything. He actually leaned into the rope, which apparently can happen within seconds, cut off that oxygen flow, and you can pass out. Some kids will do that kind of to get a rush from it. He was always trying to push the envelope. So we don't know if that was his intent. My first thought when I saw him is that he's screwing with me and trying to scare me. But the worst came to be nothing worse than, trying to give CPR to your dead son. And did that until the paramedics came, and a whole whirlwind of things have happened since then. But what Waylon's death has done for me is it's solidified the platform on which I want to stand. And I thank you, Travis, for helping to be the spark to the foundation of that platform through this podcast and then through future speaking engagements. The platform isn't on suicide. Suicide to me is an outcome, just like those other outcomes of homelessness, helplessness, poverty. All of them are born out of a feeling of hopelessness. And we see that manifested in the drug addict, in the person living in their car, people that are committing suicide, people that are violent towards others. And so I want to use this as a platform to create some place, some center. I mean, I have this vision. It's a very grand vision of somewhat of a hope center, a hopeful center, some place where people can go no matter what level of kind of thinking problem they're at, whether it's I'm stuck in a job I can't stand, but I can't see a way out, and I'm just going to live this cruddy life because that's what I'm supposed to do, all the way up then to folks who have serious mental illness and require 24-hour, 7-day-a-week care for that. And, how do we create wings and bring in the professionals? But I don't want it to be a dungeon. I go into the current homeless shelter that I volunteer at, and they do the best they can with the funds they have. But it's a former treatment center, and it's a very old building, and it's not a dungeon, but it's not a place that I think fosters hope. And I want to create a facility that can give people hope and help them overcome whatever challenges they're having with their thinking. And I don't understand it all yet. I've been corrected myself that, I had made a series of statements that Waylon made some choices that night. And, with people undergoing depression and anxiety, they're kind of not in control of those thoughts and emotions that they're feeling. And they're just kind of running on autopilot, and they're looking for a way out. And for this young man, I think that was his way out, and didn't really think too much about what the aftermath of that might be. His pain was so great. So my dream, my hope, and what I aspire to do is to help other people not live these lives of quiet desperation, to get the help they need, to get the medication in some cases that they need, to get the counseling and the therapy that they need. We had no idea, what was out there. We're kind of in that middle class, what are they calling that? Squeeze, where we're told, well, you're going to need $50,000, $60,000 to send them to treatment here, but we made too much to qualify for the treatments that are available for lower income.
Yeah.
And once we finally got him into a hospital, though, we started to see that there were a whole bunch of resources. So that would be part of this too, is just helping folks. If you're having trouble with a teen or a loved one or anyone is having trouble finding those resources, I now know a little bit more about how to find them and connect people with them. And I want to make sure that I'm making myself available to do that as well.
You've shared a lot. And first of all, I want to thank you for your bravery in sharing your story and the story of Waylon. It takes a lot to do that, especially in 2 weeks time. And the thing about depression, the thing about mental illness, it knows no class. It's not just lower class, middle class, higher class. It knows no class, no boundaries. It affects so many people. It's an epidemic. Mm-hmm. And it's something that often goes untreated, uncared for. People don't know how to get help for it, and they think it's just them. And what I want our audience to know is it's not just them. So many people are affected by this, whether they're going through it personally, they know someone going through this, whether it's a family member, a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. And I'll use myself, my own family as an example in this. personally, and I think all of us have some level of just maybe a small level of depression or anxiety. It's depending on how great it is as to how much help we need with it. I'm someone, for example, that I can host a gathering and I can get 400 people to show up at my house. I can go on an event or have an event and have tons of people be there. If I post something on social media, hundreds of people will follow it and watch it and comment on it and so on. But there are times, even someone who I think puts positive things in front of myself at all the times, and I recognize this, that I think, am I good enough?
Yeah.
Am I going to be the best that I can be? And I think, I'm sometimes that I'm not. That I'm not going to measure up, or I'm going through some financial crisis. I mean, gosh, I just launched a business all on my own, put my entire savings into it, took a huge chance, and you're saying, am I going to get there? Am I going to get there?
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll share this, and you don't know this, and it doesn't at all compare with what you're going through and with Waylon, but my son, just not even a year and a half ago, he's been fighting mental health for a long time. And we've had him in and out of mental hospitals, trying to get him the care that he needs. I try to stay in contact with him. I mean, we video call at least twice a week. He's in Indiana, I'm in Minnesota. And a little over a year and a half ago, I got a call, and he had done an intentional overdose, and they found him in a park, in a city park. And he, as far as my knowledge, has never been a drug user. And he took a lethal dose of heroin, of all things. And I had to go to Indiana to pick up my son. And it could have ended up way different. And every day is a challenge. Every day, we're hoping that Tanner's going to be okay. And what call are we going to get? And so whenever I have a call from Tanner, no matter what happens, I just stop and take it. Doesn't matter who I'm with. If that call came in while we were in this podcast, I'd have to say, Jeff, hang on a second. Now, Waylon, and I didn't know Waylon, but I know his dad. And I know that you gave him a good home. I know that you treated him like a father should treat their son. And sometimes it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what we do for them. So how can we help parents, people that are out there listening or watching this podcast right now, recognize the things that their kids are going through? Because it sounds like there might have been some signs leading up. It sounds like there might have been where we were seeking help and you were going, where do we go? What do we do? What do we watch for?
Yeah. Great questions. I don't have all the answers.
Right.
I want to say one of the things that I think is paramount to this battle is going to be people like you, Travis, people like myself, God willing, some people like Tanner one day who have conquered this battle and are managing it, to get up and be vulnerable and talk about what's happening, what's happened to them. And then what I really am looking for right now is because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be putting together some sort of a gala here very quickly to raise money to put this center together. And who I'm looking for specifically are folks who have overcome or are overcoming their battles with all forms of mental illness. And I like you, I say all the time, if you're a human being living on this planet, you've got some form of mental health trouble. And, it manifests itself to just bad thinking. And for some of us, it's an actual, there's something going on in the brain. We're always so very quick to tell the doctor everything that's wrong with our heart or kidneys or lungs. And we want to get those treated so that we can have the best life we can. But because of all of this stigma around mental health and how it shows up sometimes in very unpredictable and not understood behaviors, that we really kind of shy away and we stigmatize it. And I just think that, to me, talking about it, getting people with enough courage to get up and talk about their own mental health battles and how they've overcome it, and how there can be joy on through that journey, even not just over the overcoming, but the joy is in the overcoming is in the joy of living. And the more people that I think I can get together to just become vulnerable. If you haven't watched Brene Brown's podcast, TED Talk on vulnerability, highly recommend it. Because if you're carrying a burden, the best way to help yourself and the best way to help others is to share that burden and those experiences with other people. And that is one of the most courageous things that you can do. I think our generation, especially within men, are taught that, vulnerability is a weakness, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Vulnerability is strength. And the more people that we can get in a room talking about this, sharing their experiences, sharing how they did the stuff and took the actions, and it was hard, but on the other side of it, has found some success in their life. I just think that is a major key to helping overcome this. For the people that are experiencing it, it manifests in so many different ways. Waylon was, going between, we had no diagnosis other than the last time we saw a psychiatrist, they said he had depression and anxiety. As you read more, he had these really high highs and really low lows, and he was taking chances. He was a thrill seeker, always needing that rush of something. I found out he would go and he'd sit at school and tap his buddy, "Hey, watch me. I'm going to go tick this teacher off real quick." And he'd go up and, do something to the teacher and then tick him off, but then be able to throw on a little grin or something and get himself out of it. And then I started thinking, my gosh, how many times did that kid do that and then go downstairs and tell somebody on the phone laughing at me that he just got me all ticked off because he could push my buttons. And, it was really hard with him because he could push buttons, and he didn't always show up in a fun and loving way. It was a difficult journey for us. So I think looking back, he started getting quieter, and and what we heard the day that last Tuesday, that he had an awesome day at school, and makes me wonder, had he made up his mind at that point? Because that's what I'm hearing. Once people make up their mind, they show up more nicely, and they're not struggling, I guess, anymore because they've made a decision to do what they're going to do. And that's what we heard about him. I had to get help. It really came down to, I felt like the only way I was going to get him help was for the police to come. And that had to become a physical altercation. And so he had been goading me most of the day before he went to the hospital. And finally, he decided to get physical and started pushing me around. And I just sat on him. And just sitting on a 17-year-old at my age is not, it sounds easy, but it wasn't. And he struggled, and it was tough. But they finally came, and we were adamant. One thing the only way that he ended up staying at the hospital that night is when we told them we didn't feel safe in our own home. And we didn't, but that's what they were going to send him home until they heard that from us. So it's really tough, I think, to get people to want to commit a kid like this. And we found out it's harder to get a kid committed than it is an adult committed. Sure. Just about any adult can be placed on a 72-hour hold, but when it came to the kids, it's a much bigger deal. And they go into these hospitals and they know what to do and they know what to say. All he wanted to do was come home. And so he was going to be darn sure he didn't tell them anything or do anything that would delay him coming home, which ultimately kept him from getting the treatment that he needed. So it's sticky, it's icky, and I don't know all of the answers. But I feel like that's why I feel like putting together some place, bringing in professionals and just having it be a beautiful place to restore hope within people has got to be the answer. It's the only answer I can see, and it's going to be what I take on as my life's mission. I think, I had already been down this road trying to figure out how I wanted to show up, and Waylon, through what he's done, has given me kind of that fuel to push it forward.
Talking about this, I think is the start, right? You said earlier, I want to be the spark, and I just think it is, because some of the things that you were describing and sharing with your experience with Waylon, I faced with my son, and I know that like you and we show up at events and we're all business and we put our smiles on, and I think so many people do. You go to work every day, or or the kid goes to school every day, and they put on that smile, and they put on that face, and you get through it. And that's why this is a disease that is so undetected, so unseen, because no one will talk about the thoughts that are in the back of their head.
Yeah.
No one will talk about the things that are going on at home that are not pretty. Like we live in this society where you post everything that's great. Oh, look at me, we're on vacation. Oh, look at me, we just got this new car. Oh, look at me. And then we hide away all the things that are going on that we don't want anyone to know. And so I want to speak to our audience, and I want to just say, share, talk to someone. If you're at an AGC event and you find Jeff, talk to him and reach out to him and let him know, hey, we're going through this too with our kid. Maybe there's something he can share with you. Find me. I'm happy to have that kind of conversation with you. And I'm going to bet that anyone it doesn't matter where you are, really. I think if you find someone sitting next to you and you need help, just talk to them. I think there's more good in the world than there is bad. I think that there are more people that are going through this, or know someone that's going through this, that the person next to you will want to help you.
Yeah. I posted Waylon's memorial gathering. I gave a talk during his gathering, and struggled, but ended up deciding that I wanted to make it live and put it on Facebook Live. Yeah. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can find that live video, not live anymore. But the message there was one, I wanted to let people know the hurt that was left behind. But then I wanted to provide some hope. And ultimately, I wanted to give what I believe is the answer. And I believe the answer is love. For all the things that you just said, community that we've talked about, we're not meant to walk this alone. And whenever we're seeing someone struggling and acting out in behaviors that we don't understand, or that maybe even irritate us, think love first, and love is patient and it's kind and it doesn't carry grudges and all of these things that we know what love is, and just love people. And you don't know, I had everybody look around the room that day, and I guarantee you, everybody you look at is going through something and is carrying some burden. And you just never know when that random act of kindness, that smile, that, hey, how you doing? Coming up, walking along beside someone, holding a door for them, the simple little things, you just never know when something like that could have just a huge impact on somebody's life. And if we all just kind of failed toward love, a whole lot of our problems would start to go away. And I'm firmly in belief that love is the power. And if we can all harness that power, then we're going to make a big change in this world really quickly.
Love one another, show kindness to one another, be helpful to one another. It's the start. It really is. So, Jeff, if someone was watching or listening to today's podcast and wants to reach out to you personally, how would we go about doing that?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. My email address is jeff@performancepartnerscoaching. It's a little long. jeff@performancepartnerscoaching.com. Or give me a phone call. My phone number is 763-370-5744. And leave a message. I'll call you back. But I'm here for anybody and everybody at any time. Before all of this happened, and as I was growing my business up, my purpose in life became, and it's very simply stated, is to improve lives. And if I can do that just with a smile, there's a million ways to do that. So that's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Jeff, it's been great to have you on to share this story because I really think it's going to have the ability to impact a lot of people. The beautiful thing about podcasts is that we can share it over and over and over. They never expire. They continue to go out and reach new people at all times. So if you are watching or listening at home, thank you for being in our audience today. And I'm just going to challenge you to take this podcast and share it. Not because of AGC, but because of the message that was shared here today. Often we're focused on the business, and today we're focused on the lives behind the business. And sometimes what people are hiding behind their face in the business. Mental health affects not only teenagers, but adults. It affects all levels of class. And it's time for these stories to be heard so we can start changing the world. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Travis.
All right.
This podcast was produced by Elation Studios. Go to www.elationstudios.co. That's www.elationstudios.co to learn more. Elation Studios. Discover your voice, clarify your vision, build your life.